this week's video. So, for this week, we are doing a book review. Today, we will be talking about The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. Now, I read this book via Audible, and I liked it very much. And just so you know, the book reviews that we do here are spoilery. So, if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. Now, yes, I liked this book very much. What is this book about? This book is about this woman named Shay, who learns that one of her oldest friends has died in apparent suicide. And she hears about this via this podcast, this true crime podcast that is run by an old friend of hers named Jamie, who they've lost touch. She's pretty much lost touch with everybody, but they've lost touch. And he presents this case of this girl, Laurel, who was a friend of theirs, I guess, when they were younger, and who has died in an apparent suicide. And he brings forth the case of what if it wasn't, or yeah, I think I think he's the one that brings up the idea that it might not have been a suicide. And so he actually puts out a call sort of to Shay out, like, on the podcast. He's like trying to sort of get her attention, and is like, if anybody knows anything, but especially if my old friend, who, and he doesn't name her, but she knows that he's talking about her, knows anything that could sort of help, give me a call, reach out. I would really like to sort of get back in contact with you. So Shay is living this sort of great-ish life. She's a writer. She used to be like a magazine writer. She's working on her first book, I believe. And she's married to this rich guy named Cal, who Cal sort of he's like this kind of like the head of the household type of guy, and he's the breadwinner, while Shay, who I think has lost her job. I don't think that she's quit. I think she's lost her job because economy, and so is focused on, I think, writing her first book. And Cal's like, that's fine, you do your thing, write your book, I'll be like the breadwinner and all that. So she has a life that many would sort of envy. And when she hears that her old friend Laurel has committed suicide, which is what the police have labeled it, because she, I think, was found hanging, and somebody found the body. She decides to get, in touch with the true crime podcaster Jamie, her old friend, and they sort of, the more that they get involved in, finding out the truth, the more they start to think that, yeah, I don't think this was suicide. So she agrees to meet with Jamie. She goes back to her old hometown. She tells Cal, her husband, that it's to, get away and, like, write her book, in peace, and, like, just sort of like a writing retreat kind of thing. And he's like, okay, go do your thing. I'll be here, kind of like working and like all this. And so she goes and she's with Jamie, and it's sort of bringing back all like the memories of her and being with her friend Laurel, and they had this other friend Clem, and it was sort of like the three of them. And then when they're in college, they meet this girl named Rachel. Now, we get a lot of the stuff that we learn is Shay agreeing to be interviewed for Jamie's podcast. And that was one of the things that I wasn't overly fond of, especially as we get more into the story. Because I think a lot of things that she talks about and that she experienced and that she tells Jamie, I would have liked to have sort of read that organically in a narrative form. Because I think her telling him this, like, actually Winstead could have still written it as, like, we know that she's telling him this story, but we as the reader are experiencing it organically in like a storytelling form, rather than it's literally you're reading the transcript where it's like Jamie da 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 da, then Shay's reply da 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 da, then Jamie da 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 da, then Shay da 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 da. I didn't like that because it put up this sort of wall between the story and me, the reader. Especially when we get into later stuff. But we learn that Shay first met Laurel when she found her in a basement after having been raped by this piece of shit douche nozzle. And they go to the police, this police chief, to report it. And he's basically, the police chief is basically men. He mends the way men do. And is just horrible and basically like turns it around and blames Laurel in that way where it's like, do you really want to go through all this? It's going to be hard to prove, and I don't want you to have to go through the horrible details of what happened to you. So why don't we just, forget charging him when, honestly, it was probably just you regret what happened and, like, it got a little out of hand, and why are we going to ruin 2 lives? It was horrible. It was horrible and so freaking typical that you can't help it. You can't help but just sort of like nod your head and be like, yeah, that sounds about right. So that's how she meets Laurel. And honestly, with everything that happens, Laurel, girl, kind of makes sense. So Laurel and Clem and Shay are these, great friends. And then they meet Rachel. And Rachel has a dad. And Shay and the girls are invited to this dinner to meet Rachel's dad. And Rachel's dad, Don, comes across as this enlightened, sort of philosophical dude. He's enlightened. He gets it. He understands feminism. He's an ally. He's totally on board with women owning their power and, just being strong, independent. He admires Shay and her friends for, going to university and, going after their dreams. And so Shay, all of them really, are just blown away by Dawn. And Shay, and the other girls as well, feel a disturbance in the Force. Now, okay. When I'm reading a romance, and it's an age gap thing, I don't mind. I don't mind sort of at all. I can read that, I can enjoy that, and it's fine. In this context, I was just like, oh, girl, no. This man is your friend's father. Now, granted, she wasn't as close with Rachel as she was with Laurel and Clem, but still, it was kind of, it's kind of icky. And I just was kind of like, no, you don't do that. You don't go after a friend's father. And as the father, I was like, this is your daughter's friend. What the fuck are you doing? But they just kept playing up this tension, and soon he was inviting them over to his house, and just the tension between him and Shay kept going higher and higher. And then it started looking like the other girls were interested in him as well. And soon it sort of became this competition where, Don would invite them over to his house, and they were all vying sort of for his attention. And then things took a turn. Oh my, things really took a turn. I was not expecting that. So, Dawn starts playing up the sort of competition between them, and sort of bringing forth a little bit of kinky fuckery in the, you guys, you should stay here. Whoever, it was sort of a competition of who could spend the most time with him. And he's like, I care about all of you, so much. And I miss you when you're gone. Why don't you guys just move into my house? Yeah. So they do. Because they're so enraptured by this man that, yeah, they move into his house. And they do basically anything he wants them to. Because this enlightened man, who was so proud of their independence and how they were like going after their dreams, you know, and like their power as women, brings up the idea, why don't you guys allow me to fully show you how to embrace your sexuality as women by submitting to me and doing whatever I want you to. And that's how you'll grow into your real power as women. Now, I don't know anybody who doesn't know about the 50 Shades. And whether you think that is a true representation of BDSM, that's not the point. The point is that BDSM came to the forefront of the social media consciousness because of 50 Shades. So, whether you stayed with the 50 Shades or you branched out into other books, other media, other research about BDSM, you would know that in a BDSM relationship, when it is consensual, the submissive is the one who actually holds the power. And at any time, she can stop and say, no, I don't want to do this anymore. That's not what happened here. This motherfucker brainwashed these 3 girls. And I say 3 girls because, as we learned at this point in the story, Rachel is Dawn's daughter, so it'd be kind of weird for her to get into all the sexual kinky fuckery. But she sort of helps orchestrate it. Now, this whole past history is being told to Jamie while they are investigating Laurel's death. Because at this point, they're both on board with the fact that this was not a suicide. So they find out that Laurel was a part of this BDSM club, or this sex club. And then they sort of learn that the sex club that she was a part of, she actually went deeper and became involved with this organization. And the Potters? Something like that. I was listening to it, so I didn't have like the word sort of in front of me. So if I pronounce that wrong, we're going to go with the Potters. And this organization was like BDSM, but without the safety net, without the safe words, without, like, they were this like secret society of men, because of course, who brought women into this organization under the guise of exploring their sexual fantasies, exploring BDSM. But really, They were all a bunch of incels. They were incels with money. Let's just call it what it was. They were incels with money and power. And their goal of this society was to put women back in their place as being subordinate to men, submissive to men. Men wanted to take their power back. Where the fuck they think their power went? I don't know, because they still fucking run everything. But I digress. So we got sort of like the two kind of timelines going. But again, I would have liked if the past sort of storyline wasn't sort of being told via podcast transcript. So, in the past, the brainwashing is happening, but Clem is the most resistant. And she decides that she's going to leave. She's had enough of living in Don's house and doing his shit and all this. She's had enough. And then, oh, what do you know? Clem commits suicide. And sorry. I didn't believe for 1 second that Clem committed suicide. At that point of the story, maybe Laurel, I would have believed it. Maybe even Shay, if she wasn't the one telling the story. But not Clem. Clem was the one who was a little bit more rebellious to the idea. Like, she was still in it, and she still, wanted Don and wanted his attention, blah, 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 blah. But she wasn't as brainwashed as Laurel and Shay. And all of a sudden, she supposedly hangs herself in the shower. So, then Laurel, then Shay, and is like freaked out by this. And, the crazy fog starts to lift. And she decides maybe this is not the best place for me to be. And she tries to convince Laurel to come with her and escape. And as far as Shay knows, they do. They go to... Is it then that they go to the university, because I think he's something to do with the university. I can't remember if he's like a professor there or something, but Don is. But they go to the university, and then they tell, like, basically what is going on here, and yeah. But oddly enough, they don't hear about anything happening to Don. Don and his daughter just disappear. Yeah. So, Shay and Laurel, they get free of the house, and then they sort of lose touch, and like Shay, goes off and like gets married to Cal, and poor Cal. Okay. I understand that Shay is trying to do something here and investigating the death of her friend and blah blah blah. But I'm sorry. I was a little bit on Cal's side. Because, okay, as Shay is like discovering like these things about her friend and like sort of revisiting her past and like it's making her question her choices in life and blah blah blah, uh she starts thinking about, is the life that I had the life that I really wanted, that this marriage with Cal and stuff. But she's questioning that, which, you know, we all have a right to the lives that we want. No issue there. However, Cal is calling and wants to know what's going on. How's the book coming along? The book that she supposedly left him to go write. When are you coming home? Imagine a husband wanting to know when his wife is coming home. The woman that he married. The woman that he has a life with. What a bastard he is for wanting to know when his wife was coming home. And I feel like the book was trying to paint Cal as like this controlling, domineering husband when, like, no, I'm sorry. If the tables were turned and Cal is the one who had gone off to go, find out the truth about his friend, and Shay was the one who was at home, like taking care of things and taking care of the house and all this stuff, would we be calling her controlling and domineering because she was calling her husband and wondering, how are things going? I miss you. I want you to come home. And Shay was telling him nothing. Was telling him nothing of like what she was really doing there. And I just felt like they were trying to paint Cal in like a bad light. And it wasn't. No. Cal was not the same as these domineering pieces of shit who were holding these women hostage and brainwashing them. Cal even when Cal goes so far as to say, this is ridiculous, if you don't come home, I'm going to cut you off financially. And this is supposedly such this huge big betrayal. Like, oh, look how controlling he is, that he's going to cut me off financially if I don't come home. You're his wife! You're his wife who's gone off and won't tell him shit. If you don't want to be married, then don't be married. Because I'm sorry, when you're married, you have a relationship with someone. You're building a life with that person. And you're not working. He's the one who's controlling the money. Yes. Why is he going to continue to fund your absence from this marriage? Like, I'm sorry. I didn't see Cal as the bad guy here. I didn't see Shay as the bad guy. But I thought she was being unreasonable. In the terms of the marriage. If you don't want to be married, don't be married. I said what I said. So she basically tells him, fine, F off, in not so many words, but basically. So her marriage is over. And she and Jamie are getting closer, because it is clear that Jamie has been in love with her since they were fetuses. And that sort of blossoms into a romance, and we love to see that. Anytime I can get some romance in my books, if it's not particularly a romance, which this is not a romance, oh my god. Anytime there's a little romance addition, your girlie's happy. So they are, getting involved in these clubs, and Shay more than Jamie, because he's like the podcast guy, he's like the journalist guy, and he doesn't want her to, but a lot of times Shay sort of goes behind his back to investigate things at these clubs. And she meets this woman named Nicole, who, oh god, Nicole, oh Nicole, you deserved better. You deserved so much better. Nicole tells her that this first club, Tongue Cut Sparrow, I think it was called, was the name of the first club, is actually just a stepping stone to the higher society that is run by the Potters or the Potters. And so she's sort of her guide through this world. And every girl sort of eventually becomes the submissive or the brainwashed victim of one of the men sort of in charge. And the deeper that Shay gets into this club, the more she learns that all the men who are running this shit are men in like high positions of power. We're talking governors, we're talking judges, we're talking police chiefs, which, speaking of police chiefs, guess who Nicole's dominant is? The piece of shit chief who handled Laurel's rape case. Or non-case, as it turned out to be, because he didn't do shit. So we'll just call him the chief. The chief is Nicole's dominant. And they sort of control all these women with the idea that these women can just gain more and more power in this sort of society. When actually it's just all bullshit. It's just men in power wanting to have sex with women, wanting to force women to have sex with them by brainwashing them, because many women will not have sex with them because they realize that they are misogynistic pieces of garbage. Of hot garbage. So Shay realizes that the chief is Nicole's dominant, and she tries to warn Nicole that these are not good people. She's like, if I couldn't save Laurel, maybe I could save this Nicole. Maybe I could save Nicole if I couldn't save Laurel. So she makes it her mission to deprogram Nicole and try to get her away from the chief, to help her get out of the society and run with Shay. And it almost works. And this was another thing that I really, really hated about this book. Shay gets through to Nicole and convinces her to leave. So the Potters or whatever, they play this game with the submissives where they kind of let them think that they're going to escape and then the men sort of chase them. And Shay convinces Nicole, let's really escape. Like, this is our chance. Let's go. But the chief catches up with them, and he has, like, his misogynistic piece of shit friends with him. And Nicole takes Shay's words to heart and basically tells off the chief and is like, I'm done with this shit. I don't want anything more to do with you. I know that everything that you guys are doing are all bullshit, and the chief is like trying to like control her and like be like, you can't, how dare you speak that way to me, you little woman, and like, not in so many words, but basically being like, I am man, you are woman, I'm the one who controls you, and blah blah blah. And Nicole's like, no, I was only using you because I wanted to get up higher in the society, and blah blah blah. And the chief ends up killing Nicole. At this point, everything was just going so downhill, and I was just feeling like this, like, really, like, sort of, like, sick and just, like, depressed feeling in my stomach. Because, yes, this is fiction, but I don't doubt for a second that hot garbage like this exists. That there are societies that are doing this to women. And I just felt like the book wasn't giving the message that it thought it was giving. Because you have Shay, who she's trying to, like, bring down this society and make these men pay. And at this point, she's starting to believe that Dawn must be involved in this society somehow. So she wants to avenge her friend's death, and she wants to free Nicole, and she wants to bring down Dawn. And it just felt to me, with Nicole's death, I kind of felt this sense of sort of like hopelessness, where it's like, you're trying to tell me this story of this woman who's like, fighting the system and like fighting, for what's right, and all you're showing me is that, like, of course women don't leave. Look what happens to them. Nicole got her head bashed in because this man wanted to control her, and she was finally breaking free of that control. It would have been a better sort of message if she actually did get free with Shay, and then they worked together to bring down the society. But instead, it sort of felt like you're reinforcing, that the author was sort of like reinforcing the idea of, if you think of leaving, this could happen to you. You could get murdered, which half the time in domestic violence cases, that's what's happening. Women who try to leave, they lose their life. And even if after they leave, they still lose their life because men are not being taught that women have the right to say no and men are not being taught how to deal with rejection. You know, we're out here giving everybody fucking participation trophies, which may seem like a little thing, but that sort of plants a seed. Men are not being taught how to lose and how to deal with those feelings. They're not. Little boys, they're not being taught this. And then this turns them into entitled, misogynistic incels. I said what I said. So, Nicole dies. And Shay gets taken hostage. And she learns, she gets taken to Hilltop, which is supposedly the mecca of this society. That is where all the women are sort of like wanting to go, because that's where they'll find, you know, the highest embracing of their sort of sexuality and their power. It's bullshit, but that's what they have been brainwashed to believe. And guess who's running Hilltop? Don. Which is not actually his real name. And guess who else is there? Shay learns that Rachel is there. Kind of. Because when she meets Rachel, it's not Rachel. It's Laurel. Laurel is running frickin' Hilltop with Dawn. Because Rachel is a big old dead. Rachel, who apparently looked so much like Laurel that everybody thought it was Laurel, is the one who was found hanging. That I was not expecting. So, after Shay and Laurel supposedly left Dawn's house, Laurel was so in the cabeza that she went back. She went back to Dawn. And, oh, by the way, Rachel, not his daughter. She was just this runaway that he had also brainwashed to bring in other women, other girls, to get brainwashed by Dawn. It was this little scam that the two of them were running together. And it turns out that Rachel was the one who killed Clem. And then I can't remember if it ends up being Laurel or Dawn who was the one who killed Rachel. And buried her in the garden, where apparently all the women who tried to leave and break free of this fuckery somehow end up dead. Because these piece of shit men are killing anyone who tries to leave and burying them in the garden of this huge ass mansion compound thing. So Shay is completely stunned to see that her friend that she thought was dead is clearly alive and more brainwashed than ever. But she figures, okay, this clearly didn't work with Nicole. Maybe I can try again with Laurel. And she tries to get Laurel to leave with her. And so Shay confronts Dawn, and she's like, I'm not going to let you get away with this, and blah, 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 and I'm going to take Laurel with me. And then Dawn is like, Laurel isn't going anywhere because she, basically belongs to me, and like I'm the one who like she will do anything for, and if you want to see if you want me to prove to you that she will do anything for me, Laurel, kill yourself. And what does Laurel do? She kills herself. Literally. Like, right in front of Shay. This cuckoo magoo girl slits her own throat. And again, I got that sort of sick feeling of, you're not telling the story you think you're telling. Like, both times someone tries to leave and break free, they end up dead. And like, yeah, okay, Shay broke free and like built this life. But what about Nicole? What about Laurel? What about all those women buried in the garden? Like, I don't know, I just felt kind of hopeless. Where it was like, that's not the story that I wanted. I would have loved it so much more if Nicole had broken free, if Laurel had broken free, because oh my god, she was so close. She was so close to coming with Shay. But Dawn was like there, like twisting her mind, like, oh, there. I think it was Laurel that actually ended up killing Rachel. Or was it like Dawn was trying to make it like, the police are going to believe that you did it. You're like caught up in this world. What's your mother going to say? What's, you really think you can live without me? And like, just like poking Laurel's psyche until he won. That's what I felt like. Up to this point in the story, I felt like Dawn won. Even if Dawn goes to jail and, all these men sort of like go to jail or whatever, they won. They won because these women are dead. But I thought, okay, Shay and Ashley Winstead, you have one shot here. You have one shot here to save this fucking story for me. And that was when Shay, having snapped after seeing Laurel commit suicide for real this time, basically attacks Dawn, and she has him on his knees, and she has an axe. And while all this is happening, again, she's telling this to Jamie, or, well, no, this is happening in real time, but up to this point, she was giving, Jamie all this information and stuff, and so he goes and gives it to, not the police, but like the, sort of like the FBI, and like as higher up as he can go, because he knows if he just gives it to the police here in this town, clearly they're all involved in this shit, so it isn't gonna go anywhere. So he goes sort of like as high up as he can. And so the FBI and stuff, they know like what's going on, and they're descending on the place. They've come to like put an end to this ish. So at this point, Laurel loses her shit and attacks Don and has him on his knees, and she has an axe. And I thought, girl, you better kill this motherfucker. Because if she doesn't kill this motherfucker and really make him pay for what he did, then I am going to DNF this book. I'm at the end already, but I'm going to give this book like a 1-star rating. Because all the way through, it's just more and more hopeless. And Jamie comes and sees that she's about to put him to the axe. She's about to put Don to the axe. And he tries the whole, oh, don't do this. Like, let him go to jail. Let him pay for his crimes. What the fuck are you talking about, Jamie? Do you know what world we're talking about here? We're talking about rich-ass men who can likely hire rich-ass lawyers to easily get them off and make all this kinky fuckery shit die down for a while, just to start it up again maybe years down the road once the heat has died down. Because did this fucking idiot Jamie really believe that putting these people in jail was really gonna stop shit? These are rich white men. What? Like, Jamie has not been listening. Jamie has not been listening to Shay's story. He's not been paying attention. Thankfully, Shay doesn't pull the whole, I'm not a monster like you, so I'm not gonna kill you. I'm gonna be a better person than you. I fucking hate that shit so much, I cannot even tell you. I fucking hate when books and movies do that. I'm not like you, so I'm not gonna kill you. I'm not gonna be evil like you. You're gonna go to jail and pay for what you've done. What the fuck are they gonna pay for? They're gonna get rent free, 3 meals a day, and like, they're gonna get a life in jail that many people don't even have in their day-to-day lives while they're living on the streets homeless. they're gonna be treated better than homeless people. So what the fuck are you talking about? They're gonna pay when they go to jail. Thankfully, Shay redeemed herself and chopped that mother effer into pieces. I was so happy when she did that. That moment saved the book for me. Because she didn't pull the whole, I'm a better person than you are. So I'm not going to do what you would have done. I'm not going to take a life the way you taken a life. As I said, I fucking hate that so much. Because you're not being like that person. Don and his fucking incel buddies were killing innocent people, innocent women, for daring to want to get away from them. For daring to want their freedom. Shay would be killing a monster and taking him out of the world. Not the fucking same. Can we stop with the, I'm a better person than you are, so I'm not going to kill you the way you've been killing these people. I'm going to take the high road. Fuck the high road. Get this monster off of the fucking earth. Your girl feels very passionately about this. Did. Chopped him the hell up. And mad about it.
Jamie, weak-ass idiot that he is, was like horrified at the fact that she was smiling about this. Did you know her story? Again, like I said, I like my romance. Anytime you can get it in there, I was on board. Until he was shocked and horrified by the fact that she was smiling about having killed this monster. So, yes. Done. Bye-bye. Good riddance. Rotten piss. And, yes, the FBI comes and arrests Shay, because regardless of what I think, she did a little bit of murder. And they arrest the other men who are there, and you get like this sort of like epilogue where like you learn that like the men were like the society was dismantled, the men were taken down, the higher ups were arrested, blah blah blah. I'm sorry, I don't buy it for sort of 1 second. That like she should have blown up the whole thing. She should have like put a bomb in there and just killed them all. That would have been such a good ending. No fucking dudes going to jail and like getting like rich lawyers to like get them off and blah, blah. Because I'm sorry, you know that that's going to happen. You know that that is going to happen. They're going to go to jail, Club Med jail, rich people jail, and it's going to die down, and the whole thing's going to start all over again. But I will take my wins where I can. She killed Dawn. And she was arrested. But they hadn't had the trial yet, and so she wasn't necessarily convicted of anything yet. So they were going to try and plead, like, self-defense or something, or like, maybe temporary insanity and stuff. And so, like, Jamie
while she's under house arrest, he sort of brings her back to the podcast and um, is sort of like, asking the audience, if they could like help sort of like with her case and like with the police and with the courts and everything to sort of like um, kind of help her so that she doesn't go to jail for murder. And that's sort of like where it ends. And I was kind of like, wait, so does she? Like, we don't find out. Did she get off? Because the way this story has gone, my guess is no. She probably went to jail for murder. But you know what? Worth it. I would have walked into that jail. I would have sashayed into that jail like motherfucker. Yes, I did, and I'd do it again. Yeah. So, the reading experience for this was, it made me feel things, which, is good. you know, um, I was so happy that she killed him. I was not happy that Nicole and Laurel died. And poor Clem. Because we learned that Rachel was the one who killed Clem. She didn't commit suicide. Of course she didn't commit suicide. And I think that's what it was, that like Laurel learned that like Rachel killed Clem, so she killed Rachel. I think that's what happened. But either way, I just kind of felt like this wasn't. I don't know, like, is that like typical of Ashley Winstead's books, where it's like, this is not a happy story with a happy ending? Is like that sort of what she writes? Because I don't know if I can read another one of hers if that's sort of the typical kind of story that she tells. Because it just felt like a gut punch when Nicole died. And then Laurel. Because, yes, I was so happy when she killed Dawn, when Shay killed Dawn. But I kind of felt like it's too late. Like, what did you really, like, yeah, she saved this from happening to anybody else by Dawn. Dawn will never do it again, that's for sure. But you didn't save Nicole, and you didn't save Laurel. So it didn't feel like a win to me. Even though I was so fucking happy when she killed him, this book didn't feel like a win to me. It just felt like reinforcing the idea of, if you're in a bad relationship, women, you better not leave, because this can happen to you. Look what happened to Nicole. Look what happened to Laurel. This can happen to you. That's kind of what it felt like. And it's like, if I was in a horrible relationship like that, where I was suffering from an abusive partner, y'all, I would never leave. After reading this book, oh hell no. I would know. Oh my God, I don't want that to happen to me. yeah, like, that's sort of what I felt. So, did I like this book? Yes. It was a compelling story. Was I happy with this story? No. So, and the whole transcript thing didn't work, really did not work for me. Especially, especially when she goes on to describe, like, when she and Dawn were, like, when they first had sex. Because girl goes into, like, TMI detail. And, like, that's what I'm saying, like, it would have been different like, if we got, like, the narrative structure of her thinking about that time, as opposed to her telling Jamie these things, because she's telling him these things because it's the transcript version. And, like, she's describing, like, all the, like, the sexual, like, I'm sorry, but when you're in like an interview setting or like podcast, you don't do that. You don't go in to talk about, like, how he felt, how he touched you, how he, like, no, you would have been like, okay, Dawn and I had sex. We had a sexual relationship. Like, it just felt really weird and, like, not, like, if you're gonna go into, like, that much detail, you don't do that to you don't just tell that to a person. It just, yeah, the transcript part of it really did not work for me. It should have just been Jamie starts recording, and then we get Shay in, like, a form bring this stuff that happens. So that's my opinion.
So I don't even know what I would rate this. Because it was, the writing was great, little glitchy with the structure, like I said, with, like, the whole transcript thing. Story wise, it was great. So I would give it a 3. And the thing that saved it was she actually killed the son of a bitch. So, yeah. Otherwise, it would have been a 1, only because it was at the end and I pretty much had finished the book. So that's the only reason I couldn't give it a DNF. If she hadn't killed him. But she did. So, if she hadn't killed him, it would have been a 1 just because I'd gotten that far in the story. So I hadn't DNF'd it. So yeah, that's going to be it for this week's video. It's a long one, but I had thoughts, okay? So I would love to have your thoughts on this book. Am I the only one who felt like Cal was not being unreasonable? Am I the only one who felt kind of hopeless with this story? Yeah, sort of let me know in the comments. And that's going to be it for this week's video. Make sure that you are subscribed I'm going to try and be more on top of doing these sort of individual kind of book reviews, because I really want to do them sort of like this, where like I take the time and just sort of talk about like one book, and yeah, so in 2026 this is the goal, to sort of at least once a month have like this book review type thing going. Maybe more often, but at least once a month to try and do that. So yeah, and I will talk to you guys. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you can find when these videos go up. And I will talk to you guys next time. Y'all, the way that I would have walked into that jail cell after killing this like, you would have heard me whistling or like singing. Ding dong, the incel's gone, the incel's gone. Ding dong, the incel's gone. I chopped his head and arms off. Bye.